On this edition of the program, will Donald Trump go into Chicago? How has it worked out in D.C.? And what are the politics of the shutdown fight? We talked to Kirk Bado about all that. And then we bring in Evan Scrimshaw and go through some of the New York City mayoral issues, the Jenga. If you pull out Sliwa, but you leave in Adams, does Cuomo get to topple Zohran Mamdani? It is all coming up.
The following is brought to you by Just Another Pilot.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for September 9th, 2025. Your old pal Justin Robert Young joining you here in Austin, Texas. And got you. Coming out a little early. Normally we're on Wednesday, but I wanted to get you a bunch of stuff because I got some travel and if we're going to pre-record episodes, you might as well release them. You might as well get them out before there's any kind of news that invalidates it. So we're going to have Scrimshaw coming up in a little bit to talk about the New York City mayoral race. But first, let's go ahead and get in our buddy, Kirk Patrick Bado. Coming in hot on a recess-abated week. Everybody's back in D.C. They got a week to get their wiggles out. And now we are marching toward funding, marching toward shutdown, marching toward Chicago. And to break down all of it, we have Kirk Bado, National Journal Hotline editor. How you doing, boss?
Justin, doing great on a Victory Monday here with you. And, marching towards Chicago, Trump might actually be marching towards Chicago.
He might actually himself be marching towards Chicago. We're going to do our best to not talk a lot about the fact that Aaron Rodgers came out and threw 4 touchdowns. But I will just say I was wrong with ivermectin. It's a super drug. Okay. Let's get to, I got a few topics. Shutdown I want to talk to you about, but Chicago seems to be most pressing. Donald Trump roiling the waters over the weekend. I thought there was a chance that National Guard could go in over the weekend. It seems like the White House believes this is a winning issue for them. They kind of want to put it front and center, and all of it is predicated on what they look at as a huge victory in D.C. as they come up on the 30-day mark there. They have the Democratic mayor of D.C. saying that the National Guard has helped in abating crime. You are in D.C. What say you about the situation that you are seeing and the viability as a political issue for Trump in Chicago?
I mean, did you see the Francis Ford Coppola movie Megalopolis last year? I mean, because that's what the streets are looking like right now. It's clean. People are walking to parks everywhere. The sky is blue. There's no crime. It's actually really weird in DC right now. Yeah. The attitude is weird. Everyone is terrified right now. I mean, yesterday I was driving my buddy back to his apartment in Mount Vernon, and there was a huge ICE operation going on right outside a popular spot for people to order Uber Eats. A lot of delivery drivers hanging out there, and there were probably no less than 24 cop cars out there. And I think Trump wants to replicate this in other cities, clearly what you're saying. But I've been taken aback with his promises. We're going into Chicago. He's added New Orleans to his hit list too right now. Are you surprised that he has not pushed them in there yet, and that he is still playing the legal game of, I need to be asked to come into here. I'm not coming in here until I'm going to exert enough political pressure, try to put a lot of political pain on Pritzker to get them to ask me to send in the Guard, because that was the problem with sending the troops in to California earlier this year. Are you surprised with how much he's towing the line there?
No, I'm not surprised. I said when they went into DC is the perfect place to do it, because
Absolutely.
DC is not a city in the way that Chicago and New Orleans are. It is federal land that the federal government has jurisdiction over, more so than they would these other cities that we are talking about. So the fact that he was more aggressive and more cavalier with DC does not shock me, because those, I feel like, Kirk, we could probably go back for the last 3 years when Trump was out of office, and maybe even during Trump's first term, that there was this certain kind of Twitter guy that was like, I don't know why they're not just doing X, Y, Z. And like home rule was one of the things in DC. It was just like all of these conservative ideas that existed and would pop up every once in a while on social media that now really have become the playbook for Trump too. Like it's every version of, well, why don't you just blank? And it doesn't matter whether the ideas are necessarily sound, if they are plausible, if they are triable in court, then they are going forward with it. But
he's testing the fence all the time, like Jurassic Park. Like he's the Raptors testing the fence all the time.
Well, I mean, it's like, and this gets into the endless cycle of, no, you did it first. No, you did it first. But if you pay attention to conservative media, they believe that Democrats have been testing the fence and pushing their authority, or pushing executive authority. If you even go back beyond that and look at it just as a libertarian, statute of powers kind of perspective, that the executive branch has been testing the limits of what they can do for decades, right? And that has
since
been
Jackson.
Yeah. So it's like, this is obviously a step further, but also it's a flavor. It is a version of it that we are unaware of, because usually Republicans don't feel that they have the political capital to push all in on stuff like this. Trump very, very much feels like he does, and he is going to act accordingly. To Chicago and New Orleans, I think the playbook there is more like LA than it is DC. DC, you could, hit the lights, you're rolling in. Now all of a sudden there's a tank in the middle of a square that used to have homeless people. And so the citizens of DC can decide whether or not they like a tank or they like homeless people more in the park. And that can be its own conversation.
Right.
Chicago and New Orleans, I think they're going to have to provoke something. There's going to have to be some kind of demonstration. But in the meanwhile, I do think that Trump relishes in going to anybody in those cities and saying, fix it. And then to the citizens, if they don't fix it, why don't you want what's happening in DC right now? Why don't you want there to be a radically different way of law and order? Now, what the reality is on the ground, you know better than I do, at least on the DC side, but that's how I'm seeing it.
Well, it's interesting. Like, I think you're teeing it up correctly, that Trump has massive control over DC, that there's a lot of wiggle room here. He can call in all these different federal troops, not just the National Guard. He's federalized the DC Metro Police. He can call in the U.S. Capitol Police, USATF, DEA. You're seeing all these different cops from all these different federal jurisdictions. I think I told you the last time I was on here that I saw the Amtrak police with a car parked outside the White House guarding it. There's a lot of forces that he can marshal in DC that he can't do elsewhere. Yeah. And you've seen that with how he's been talking about deploying the National Guard here. In 19 Republican states right now, he promised a surge of National Guard members to help facilitate ICE deportation operations. Yeah. He can do that because in those 19 Republican states, the governors are like, yeah, come on in. We'll welcome the Guard in here to help facilitate and guard these federal agents in carrying out their duties. The National Guardsmen there cannot arrest people. They
No.
can't go in there and, go into and do the raid, but they can guard and help facilitate the ICE agents who are doing the raids. And that's what he's trying to trigger in Chicago here. That's what he's trying to trigger in New Orleans. And it's kind of a two-front pressure campaign where he has these ICE agents massing at that Navy base outside of Chicago.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you have the political pressure he's trying to exert, whether it's that True Social post where he's Robert Duvall's character from Apocalypse Now, and it's Shy-Apocalypse Now there. But he's trying to pressure them into saying, you guys are in trouble. Just before we started taping here, he posted on True Social about the crime statistics from Chicago this past weekend, like he's a nightly news anchor here.
Yeah.
He's trying to pressure them into a situation where they want the guard to come in. He's extremely limited right now, and he's really following the letter of the law, which, again, I think is very interesting here, is that he's not just going full bore in like he did in California, in Los Angeles earlier this year.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that from my perspective, there was enough of an organized pushback that he had a predicate to move in on. There were enough. Right. And look, let's understand that the way that Donald Trump works is entirely televised visuals. So it's like there was enough fire in the streets in LA. There was enough a smashed out cop car in LA that he was like, okay, we're going to send in the National Guard. And so, and that was to protect the facilities, blah, 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 blah. I do think also, and I haven't heard a lot of conversation about this, but I think his reaction to the BLM riots when he was president is something that he feels is a black mark that he cannot repeat. When he looked at a burnt out a police building in Minneapolis, that he's like, okay, well that
we can't have that happening yet.
Yeah, I think he sees that he failed there, and so he is going to be aggressive about like, hey, there's not going to be an ICE detention center that gets overrun. There's not going to be X, Y, or Z. Now, because DC was. Well, here, let me ask you this because you're there. Was DC a successful operation, or is DC a successful operation? Obviously, it's a weird vibe. You've said that it's been a weird vibe since the Doge firings, that it has been an odd time to be in DC, that the happy hours get longer and the frowns get deeper. But would you consider it from a public safety perspective to be successful?
I think that it has had a noticeable difference in the amount of people who are, just hanging out at some of these areas. The streets are really empty. Like I live over here near H Street, which is closer to a little bit of a tougher area of town. And I've noticed a complete decline in people walking out on the street here. People either hanging out at some of the parks near here. Navy Yard has also seen a big crackdown as well. That was kind of a point of emphasis because that's where a bunch of congressional staffers live. That's where a bunch of members of Congress live as well. That's where Henry Cuellar was carjacked. That's where Angie Craig was assaulted in the elevator at her apartment building. I've been over there a few times since the crackdown, and that's where you can feel the federal presence a lot more acutely. A lot of National Guardsmen walking out. But I think it really just has people just feeling tense to go outside their homes right now here. And I don't think this beautification project that they're working on has been making much dividends as well. I mean, maybe outside of somewhere like Lafayette Park outside the White House where they have guardsmen picking up trash, or in East Potomac Park where the public golf course is. I was there the other weekend and you saw National Guardsmen with weed whackers trying to clean up the lawn there. It's gotten a lot of people puzzled now of, I've seen it out on the streets, a lot of just random people going up to the guardsmen being like, hey man, why are you here? Like, what are you doing here? And that's kind of the attitude right now. I don't know how much successful it is. Whacking weeds, trying to clean shit up here. Like, it's really interesting to see the reaction to this right now, which is, again, we're feeling the federal government in ways that we have not previously felt here. Yeah. It's not as bad as it was during the, to your point, you bring up the BLM protesters in 2020. One of the areas where Trump really cracked down was in DC here. That's where he brought in a bunch of National Guardsmen as well. If you remember, he had the helicopters swooping in low between the buildings onto the street to try to disperse crowds. That was a real scary time here. It's not at that level yet, but I think people are worried that it could escalate to that if something goes wrong here.
That there could be an uprising, that there could be an organized pushback in the same way that BLM was?
Yes, and that if you got these hundreds of National Guardmen out here right now, they're now, unlike initially reported that they wouldn't carry firearms, they now have sidearms. They're walking around. There's some people walking around here with long guns as well. And all I'm thinking of, and this is what I've been talking to with a bunch of the reporters here who are in charge of, who are covering this, who are living under this too, is that all it takes is just one screw up, one incident here, one confrontation gone wrong here, where this could really explode into something pretty tragic. And that's what we're worried about here. There was an organized protest this weekend with a few hundred people marching from Malcolm X Park down to City Hall, down right near the White House. And I'm worried that if there is some sort of inciting incident here, that if this powder keg does explode, because right now people are just hanging around. Guardsmen are getting harassed a little bit, but it's more people saying, like, what are you doing here? Come on, no, we don't want you here. I'm worried if something gets violent, that this is not going to be a good situation. And that's what was going on in 2020. That's what I'm worried about.
So I guess what I have a hard time from afar squaring the circle on is that, I would assume that Muriel Bowser, she's either looking at numbers, she's looking at constituent feedback, or she's looking at something, because she's in the past had no problem thumbing her nose at Donald Trump specifically. If anything, her opposition to Donald Trump has at times defined her, and she's been collegial with this. She even was giving credit. Now, obviously, I think this might be a way for her to say, hey, look, we're going to keep a version of this, but we don't want this to be totally federalized forever. Mm-hmm. How do I square that circle? Are you just ensconced in your white wine and cheese parties amongst your journalistic elite, and it is the common man that is like, hey, this is really cool?
No, I think, again, it's not wrong to say that, like, DC had a crime problem. Yes, it was moving in the right direction, but it was still had a crime problem. Everyone acknowledges that. I think the scale of the tactics here and the scale of the tactics Trump wants to deploy in Chicago are the issue. And in terms of Bowser, I think she's following the playbook of all these other institutions right now, whether they're the mainstream media institutions like ABC or CBS who are cutting deals with Trump, or the universities or the big law firms, where it is better to avoid the eye of Sauron right now than to run afoul of it. And I think what's hanging over all this, and this is not just because this is the first time we're talking after the week one of the NFL, it's the Commanders deal. The returning the Commanders to DC is Mayor Bowser's top priority here. That is what she sees as, she's in her third term now. She sees that as a legacy defining achievement to bring the Commanders back from Maryland into the district at the old RFK site. And in Trump, she has a very, very, very willing dance partner who is able to put the pressure on the Commanders, able to put the pressure on the NFL as well. And until they start breaking ground on that stadium and the Commanders have their first kickoff down here, that's going to be her entire operating principle, is returning the Commanders to DC. And with Trump as an ally there, she's not going to run afoul from him the same way she did that first term.
Gotcha. And so this probably, look, if the numbers are down, the numbers are down, and she's not going to say boo to the numbers being down, but she's not going to be championing the, like, hey, I'm sure her donor base, I'm sure that her social circle is probably as alarmed, if not more alarmed than you are, in terms of talking about the bizarre feeling of having an occupying army next to you, and then also having that occupying army weed whack various lawns. But that is an element there. I haven't really followed that, except to know that there seems to be a fight between her and the city council on.
There's a few holdouts on the city council for the scope of the project right now, so it's not 100% a done deal. There's a lot of momentum toward it right now. I'd be shocked if it didn't happen. But one way to get this derailed is for her to run afoul of Trump, and then Trump says, you know where the commanders should play instead? In Virginia. Because that was a plan that was floated a few years ago, was moving a facility down into like the Fairfax area. And that would be a huge, huge loss and a big gain for Glenn Youngkin on his way out the door here. So I think that's
because he almost got the Caps and the Wizards, right? Like that. Exactly, that was an 11th hour turnaround because Leonsis, the owner of both of those teams, felt that Chinatown was too prone to carjackings.
Exactly. And Mayor Bowser, to her credit, was able to negotiate him back into staying in the district with extensive renovations to the Capital One area and the Gallery Place facility in downtown DC. But her eyes are set on the commanders here. And that's not going to change anytime soon. And plus, there's no real political incentive because, the primary for her is a few months away. And she doesn't have really any real challengers here. There's been no anti-Bowser contingent here in DC. There's no like rebel rousing city council member or ANC member who can put the money or the coalition together to go against her, even if she's, DC is the bluest area in the country. I think it was like 90% of voters went for Kamala Harris here. This is not necessarily Trump-friendly territory here, but there's no serious challenges to her right now. So there's no political incentive for her to moderate, and there's the huge incentive of not blowing up this commanders deal.
Yeah. All right. So we will see what happens in Chicago. We'll see what happens in New Orleans. My guess is that they're going to move. He's going to dip a little something in there. There's going to be a reaction. And then if they move more people in, it's going to be because of the reaction, not because of he's not going to go all into the South Side with National Guard people, although maybe he will. You never know. He's a pretty capricious guy, the president of the United States. Is the government going to shut down? What are you hearing?
Probably. Yes. Yeah. I think there's a lot of appetite right now for Democrats to do something. I think you saw that finally bubble up to the pages of the New York Times op-ed with Ezra Klein calling for a shutdown right now, which if he is talking about it right now, he knows what audience he's writing for and what audience he's pulling from here. I would be shocked if there's not some form of shutdown here, at least for a week, maybe two at the end of the month here, because Democrats want to see some fight right now. And as Trump is ramping up it goes back to what we were just talking about. As Trump is ramping down his crackdowns on blue cities, as his economic policies are leading to this stagflation right now. There's even some justification I've heard people talking about with the Epstein files as well, that there could be some sort of deal in place for more releases there. This is a lot less of a done deal for funding the government as it was earlier this year. Democrats want to fight right now. I would be shocked if the government did not shut down at the end of the month.
Do you think how much do you view this as kind of a change in the meta? Because this is not Democrat behavior. The Democratic Party usually is the government needs to stay open. Come on, guys, let's not throw a hissy fit because we don't get everything that we want. Republicans are more ideologically inclined to shut down the government because they tend to want to prove that maybe the government isn't the only thing that exists in life. But the Democrats are, and now they're going to shut down the government. And my thought on this is all right, it's going to feel really, really good when you do it. And everyone's going to go on their various media platforms and you're probably going to raise, a little bit of money because you're doing the thing. But like you said, A, how long does it last? And B, is there literally anything that you could possibly think to grab as a win condition here? Because I tend to think it's going to be the opposite. Trump is going to try to extend this for as long as possible, because if he goes outside of a month, then he gets more federal authority and he's going to do things that the Democrats don't like then. And then the Democrats are going to have to heroically rush in and put out the fire that they started.
Well, I think that's right. I don't know what the win condition is. I think that's something I've been trying to ask a bunch of Democrats I'm talking to right now about, like, what could reopen this here, and no one has any set answer here. It's a grab bag of Democratic
Medicaid cuts,
rolling back the Medicaid cuts, restoring a bunch of the SNAP benefits as well, which is stuff that just isn't going to happen here. One of the things that I'm thinking about in the back of my mind is that Trump has unified control. Trump and Republicans have unified control of government right now.
Yeah.
If that government shuts down, even if Democrats are the driving force behind it, it's hard for me to imagine that they won't own that in some way, shape, or form here in the long run. Thinking back to the first Trump administration and that long government shutdown heading into 2018 at the end of 2017, and how disruptive that was, how that was really hung on Republicans' neck. And with Trump, as he can't help himself, he's the main character in every single story. Like he's got to go to the U.S. Open. He's got to weigh in on Taylor and Travis's engagement. Yes. He has to jump in on every single other story going on right now. It's going to be hard for me to imagine that he is not going to try and sit back and let Democrats hang themselves here. He's going to try and get out in front of it, try and get out ahead of it, try and make everything he says about the shutdown to come right back to him. So I don't think there's any way that doesn't hurt them politically, at least a little bit here. I think he's going to go ahead.
Yeah. So the goal of doing something is to get into a messaging battle with Donald Trump. How well has that worked over the last decade for the Democrats?
When you frame it like that, they don't. I think this arc here right now. You mentioned it's changing the meta here. I've been thinking a lot about Gavin Newsom lately. And I hate that I have to think about Gavin Newsom a lot lately. Yeah. And he started this new Trump regime on his Look Who's Talking, the Gavin Newsom podcast, with trying to be more
bridge the gap.
To try
me and Charlie Kirk, we're not so different, you and I. Let's have a conversation.
Exactly. And now he's taking the role as this resistor in chief. And I think that's kind of emblematic of the larger path that the Democrats are taking as they're in the wilderness right now, where for the first few months, they even gave Trump a little bit of let's give him a chance here, a little bit of a honeymoon here, a little bit of his economic populist messages really resonate with people. Maybe we can try and glob onto that a little bit. But now as we're sitting here 8 months into Trump 2.0, it's full on F this guy. It's full on. We will not put up with this, and we're going to use every tool at our disposal to resist what he's doing here right now. And whether that shakes the Democrats awake here, whether that fires up their base, I don't know right now. They don't necessarily have, to your point, that point person on the message. If Gavin Newsom is going to be your guy who's going to be shouldering the messaging on his redistricting referendum, if he's going to be your guy shouldering the message on this shutdown, then what the hell are Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer doing here? Like, honestly, what is their goal then? What is the point if they can't shoulder that message?
That to me is the number one reason why I know there's going to be a government shutdown, is because Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer don't have jobs if there's not a government shutdown.
Correct.
Because
you saw how they jumped on Schumer last time around.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, that's why they put a bullet over his head and said, the next one's in your eye if you don't do what we say. And there's nothing he has that that he can offer. There's no win. There's no policy proposal. There's no hey guys, let's focus on this, that, and the other. The only stuff that he's brought to the table is this blockade on the nominees, which is so wonky that you have no idea that it's even happening.
I don't even understand it. It's my job to understand this. I don't understand it either. This fight over blue slips, completely above me. I'm not a parliamentarian. I'm sorry. I don't necessarily get this. And if I can't get this, what's the average voter supposed to do?
And by the way, all that's going to happen is that the Republicans are now going to change the rules of the Senate to where they're going to have more of an advantage, at least for the ongoing. And if you look at the senatorial map, I don't know when the next time the Democrats are going to have control.
It's so tough this year, and it's so tough next cycle too. It's going to be extremely difficult.
And, at some point, the Arizona Republican Party might wake up and realize that they're in an R+4 state. The Georgia Republican Party might stop fighting with each other and pushing also ran SEC coaches into key positions like they're doing with Dooley. And maybe they would actually reclaim one of the 4 seats that probably should be at least split, should be at least 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, if not 4 Republican seats. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a weird decision point. But also, so if I'm going to look at it from the Democratic perspective, if I were in that tent, I would say, hey, look, can we please pick something and make it our main issue and don't get shaken by every piece of bait that Donald Trump throws out there? Let's not foam at the mouth when he puts up a stupid AI photo of him in Apocalypse Now gear. It doesn't need to be the number one, this clap is clap fascism clap for everything.
In this house.
Yeah. Let's just pick, I don't know, this is stuff I've said before, sorry to be in reruns, small business. It's a Holocaust out there with the tariffs. Find a sympathetic person every single week, put the drumbeat on that person and say, look, this guy is either out of business or is about to be out of business because of these tariffs. They're going to affect them before they affect the big companies. So now you were trying to take out Donald Trump's emotional win for the idea that he is doing it for the right reasons, even if you don't agree with it. Abortion, whatever. Like, figure out the things that you can own that the White House and the Republicans don't want to touch. And so far, the only thing that they can agree on is Epstein, which is like mind blowing to me that this is the thing that they want to go all in on. But at the same time, I can understand it because it's the only thing that makes the Republicans in the White House uncomfortable, which brings us to this. Where do you think we sit as of today? We're recording this Monday the 8th on the summer of Epstein. Does it continue chugging along, or are we now starting with our pumpkin spice lattes and our fantasy football beginning to transition out of that hot fever swamp conspiracy summer?
I think it was F. Scott Fitzgerald who said life begins over again in the fall. That's not going to be the case here, I think, for the Epstein files. I think they're going to be reaching back, boats borne ceaselessly into the past, as Democrats try to unearth as much as they can here. Like you said, this is the one big winning issue they have right now that breaks through a lot of people's media silos.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about this. The folks who are paid the least attention to the news are paying attention to this one here. Those are those soft Trump voters who delivered him to the White House this time around. They're paying attention to this. Mike Johnson, who for some reason insinuated that Trump was an informant for the FBI as part of their case against Jeffrey Epstein. He's since walked that bat. Yeah. He's since walked that bat today. But if you are trying to let this story lie, talking about how your president was wearing a freaking wire to try to help the FBI here in probably the biggest sex crimes case of the last 3 decades or so, does not
certainly
make that
the most
go away.
Talked about.
Right. And I think it's not going to be so much the Democrats who are going to keep this in the news. It's going to be the Republican goals that are going to keep this in the news here. Thomas Massey's on a crusade here. Marjorie Taylor Greene is on a crusade here. Nancy Mace is as well. Lauren Boebert is as well. And if there's one thing all 3 of those members have in common, it's that they have a unique ability to drum up attention for whatever their cause is. Yeah. And until Republican leadership, whether it's from the White House or from the Speaker's office, takes care of them, this is going to be the drumbeat. Now, do I think that the midterms are going to be the Epstein election? No, I do not. Because I was thinking, like, at this time 8 years ago, Republicans have already tried to overturn the ACA At least the House Republicans did. And Democrats were able to hammer that into the ground. They had the signature vote. Like, they are trying to take healthcare away here. Full stop here. And it's a simple message. It's one that they hammered in on, and one that's easily digestible for voters. I don't think you have that same type of push with the one big beautiful bill. Now, Republicans are acknowledging that it's a political lead balloon here. Yes, they've had this meeting where they're trying to rebrand it as the middle class family tax cut. Doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue as well. But I don't think that's going to be as easy to digest for voters as stuff like the Epstein cases, or even, to your point, the tariffs might be. But Democrats are still searching for that one message right now for them to hammer in on. And we're a little bit more than a year out. They have a little bit of time here, but they got to get their shit together.
Yeah. You know, you saw Mallory McMorrow, who's running,
not a done deal.
Yeah, who's running for Senate in Michigan, ran an ad for, about cost of living, framing it with like, all right, so red zone is back, but now it's going to have commercials, and that's because corporations are greedy. You want to know where else corporations are greedy? On hamburgers, hot dogs, blah, 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 which is like essentially a Republican ad for the last 4 years. But now they are, the Democrats are running with it, and I don't blame them. They should be. I'm going to zag on Epstein.
You're out on that ad. Oh, okay.
No, I like that ad. And I think that she's a compelling candidate. I'm actually curious as to why she doesn't have more traction there, but maybe I just think she's a good candidate because I follow Liz Smith on Twitter and she's pumping her because she works for her. But like,
well, then I've got a candidate in Texas for you. Sorry, continue.
I think that the Epstein stuff is on the way out. And the reason why is because what made it special initially over the summer was the right-wing media ecosphere was apoplectic about it. And so they were talking about it every single day, and their audiences were extraordinarily hot on it. I actually think that the peak of it was last week when they brought out the survivors, that Ro Khanna and Massey brought out the survivors, and then you start to look at them, and it's like, wait a minute. So you guys are all out here. You're talking about this as a horrifying situation, which I have no reason to doubt you. But then the logical question gets asked, which is, so who molested you? And they're like, well, we're putting together a list. And it's like, awesome. Like, really what the public wants is more information. And if the survivors won't give the information and the government won't give the information, and this is where, again, I've said I've been Michael Tracy pilled on this entire thing. I now tend to believe that the more you look into this, the more this is mythology than it might be. This was an extraordinarily horny, creepy man who would bring in girls of all stripes and did not care how old they were. Whether or not he trafficked them to other people, who knows? Whether or not he trafficked them to famous people, like, who knows? What the definition of trafficking post Me Too is something way different than what we would have understood it to be at the time, or really throughout our entire history. So it's like, I don't know. There's just a lot of this that doesn't seem quite as pressing. And also the discharge petition, which is being pushed by Massey and Khanna, which is the reason why they had that press event, stalled after they had the press event. They were hoping to shake loose 2 more Republicans. Now, they don't have to if they wait until November, because there's going to be special elections that will give Democrats enough firepower to go forward with that. But I don't know. It feels like it's stalled. It feels like we're just going to entrench into a position where it's like Democrats and Thomas Massey hate the White House and the Republicans. The most interesting part about it, to your point, is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Lauren Boebert, I think, is a secondary order on that. And Nancy Mace is whatever planet Nancy Mace is on.
We'll do a whole episode once on Nancy Mace. We need to dissect what's going on.
I've heard just bonkers rumors about Nancy Mace.
That is a conversation for off the microphone.
There's just rumors about the district on Nancy Mace is a whole nother conversation that we probably shouldn't be committing to the public record.
You and I can go out and do a floor speech about it, and we'll be
exactly.
We'll be fine.
One of us needs to get elected so we can go on the floor speech and say, all right, here's all the stuff I heard about Nancy Mace. And in fact, I'm not even going to say I heard it. I'm saying it's true. It's true. You come after me.
Protected speech.
Exactly. Protected speech. All right, let me get one.
Can I jump in real quick with just one? Yeah, you mentioned the Mallory McMorrow ad, and I thought that was a real feat of political athleticism to get that together so quickly. And it reminded me of, and it had me thinking about the Abigail Spanberger did a similar feat last week as well. Winsome Earl Sears, the Republican candidate lieutenant in the Virginia governor's race, started taking the Trump playbook and started running ads about how Abigail Spanberger is for they, them. Winsome Earl Sears is for us. Really, again, just verbatim the Trump ads. Spanberger within the week had a counter ad up, ready to go on broadcast. And that's the political flexibility and athleticism there that we did not see from Kamala Harris when Trump was doing the same thing. So between McMorrow's seizing on this political discourse and Abigail Spanberger down in Virginia getting out and denouncing these attack ads quickly, I think that's something that Democrats can take away here as we need to be more mobile here. But I don't think they need to put that energy into responding to every single piece of bait that Trump puts out too.
All right. Let me ask you this. I'm going to give you 4 races that right now the polling favorites are who they are. I'm going to need you to give me one upset out of those 4.
Oh, hit me.
You mentioned the Virginia governor's race. There's a New Jersey governor's race. Mamdani in New York and Prop 50 in California, the redistricting proposition. Of those 4 right now, various polling aggregates now have Spanberger up. They have the Democrat up in New Jersey. They have Mamdani up in New York City, and they have Prop 50 up depending on the wording. If one of those doesn't happen the way that it's polling now, which one and why?
Prop 50. Easy. Prop 50 is the one that I would think is the most at risk here. I think Mamdani's running a really great and sound campaign right now, and with Eric Adams pulling his best Jordan Belfort impersonation and saying, "I'm not leaving I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. They don't have to drag me out." With him doing that, I think he's looking good. I think Abigail Spanberger. I think the race is going to narrow in New Jersey and Virginia over these next few weeks, but I would be very surprised if Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill aren't the winners there. The Prop 51, I think that's the one that's most at risk here. There's going to be so much money flying around. There's going to be a whole coalition of Republicans and more independent-minded activists getting involved in that race. It's going to be a big test for Gavin Newsom. It's going to be much harder than that recall election. Even if he wants to compare it to that, it's totally different. And I think that's the one. If there's ever going to be an upset, it's going to be on Prop 50 and change and okaying the Democratic gerrymander in California.
If you want a playbook for how Gavin Newsom goes from the great fighter and unquestioned now leader in 28 to a total goat who gets picked apart and kicked around, it's going to be, hey, thanks for wasting $100 million of money that wanted to go to Democratic causes for a vanity project that you couldn't even see over the finish line, especially if the Democrats if they have major money problems going into the midterms, which it still looks like that is highly, highly, highly in play.
And there's going to be Democrats who are rooting for that to fail too. There are Democratic hopefuls in 2028 who are watching this happen, who are watching Newsom put himself in front of every camera imaginable and put his credibility on the line with Prop 50, who would like to see that fail.
Okay. Last thing out the door. Steelers thoughts. You've been an Aaron Rodgers skeptic. He was spinning.
I still am.
4 touchdowns.
I still am.
Okay. Go.
I thought I did see the light
Yeah.
for a few drives there. There were so many times on a long third down where I thought there's no way that Justin Fields or Russell Wilson or the last few years of Ben Roethlisberger that they could have gotten those passes off that Aaron Rodgers did. But
Mitch
then
Trubisky erasure, but go ahead.
I forgot.
He also would have failed in doing it, but yeah, go ahead.
That Mason Rudolph as well, or Duck Hodges could not make those passes. But then there are also plays where he just does not. He's obviously not as mobile at 41. There are a lot of holes on that offensive line that when he gets under pressure and he gets hit, I feel like I'm watching Joel Embiid, because every time he goes down, I'm worried that's the last time he's going to go down.
Yeah.
And that has me terrified, that every time he takes a hit, every time he's under pressure, that he's going to get hit and be down for the count. That's what worries me. And I'm worried about the defense even more now. I mean, you and I were texting about it on Sunday, that it's an expressway, that we made Justin Fields look extremely competent. We made the New York Football Jets look extremely competent. That worries me, especially after watching the fireworks show the Ravens put on last night.
I think that they might be really good, or they might be better. I think that the Jets might be in a good position. And I think that Justin Fields has a little Geno Smith potential of like guy that everybody sort of thought they knew what he was and then sort of grew up later, because he looked different in this game than he had even with us. You know,
we couldn't bring him down. He was so elusive out there. He was so good.
But we did kept a lid on him. You know, he didn't bust like a 40-yard run or anything. Like he got out, he got first downs, but you know, anybody who's that mobile is going to do that. Really, the problem was Breece Hall, and I don't know. Week one, we'll find out. Jalen Ramsey, already my favorite Steeler of all time. He played one game. He's the best. I've always just been a fan of the insane, psychotic, talking.
I did love him talking on the way out at halftime. That was great.
Defensive
that
player.
got me fired up.
Somebody who is now more Joey Porter than Joey Porter's own son, who is also a defensive back on the Pittsburgh Steelers, is truly, truly, truly great. So I'm happy to see it. And really, just the fact that we saw Arthur Smith's bizarre tight end fetish, like now, like two tight ends blocking for a tight end running in a touchdown. I don't know what he's into, but don't yuck on his yum. I'm loving it so far. Kirk Bado, where can people find you?
Well, Justin, first off, thanks for having me. Love coming here, breaking down film with you, both politically and on the gridiron. You can find me on Twitter at Kirk_Bado. I'm also on Substack, same handle there. I'm also started contributing to Newsphere as well, doing weekly videos for them with my editor-in-chief, Jeff Dufour, where we're breaking down the week in politics, and I'm also breaking down the stories of the week that matter most for the midterm, so doing a lot more video stuff. It's been fun. You can also find myself and my hotline colleagues at nationaljournal.com and at NJ Hotline on Twitter.
All right, there we go. Thank you very much, Kirk.
Thank you, sir.
This is your update brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That's where you get 2 bonus episodes each and every week on our Substack. Go ahead, join the team. Donald Trump warning all foreign countries that if you want to bring in your money and your labor, to do it legally, all caps. This after an immigration raid at a Georgia plant for Hyundai that detained over 475 people that the government says are illegally working at the site, which is currently under construction. Apparently, over 200 of those are South Korean nationals. This has sparked a low-level international fight as South Korea and the United States over the weekend finalized the deal to get all of those people back to South Korea. But, man, that is a real head scratcher that I don't know how something gets to that kind of place. You know, I've seen a lot of speculations. There's a good Wall Street Journal article about it. But how do over 200 South Koreans make their way to a plant like that. That's kind of crazy. And then for Trump, I was waiting to see what Trump would say on this, on whether or not it was a mix-up. Obviously, it's ICE. These are two things that are Donald Trump priorities. If you want to look at them as like tendrils of Donald Trump loves foreign investment in America, and he loves ICE raids. But here they are, bumping up against each other. So I was curious how he was going to say. And what he said was very diplomatic in terms of, again, trying to feed both of his constituencies. Bring them in legally. We will make it as fast and easy to get them in. But, don't cut corners. I still think that there's more shoes to drop with this one. In international news, Javier Milei of Argentina suffered a blow in Buenos Aires provincial elections, often looked at as a bellwether for congressional races. It looks as if, although there has been economic progress in Argentina, that he has a steady road to climb, at least in terms of bringing back the Peronist party, for which he initially dethroned. I don't know anything about this, so I'm going to have to bring somebody who understands Argentinian politics on to actually describe what is happening to me, but something to put on your radar. If you are one of those follow Javier Milei as a proxy for where libertarian ideals go and whether or not they are popular worldwide, let alone in South America. And finally, beginning Monday is the trial of Ryan Wesley Routh, the man who was arrested attempting to assassinate Donald Trump on a golf course last summer. There are several charges that he is facing, including the attempted murder of the then candidate for president and former president before his reelection. Crazy character, crazy guy. Was very active on social media, trying to recruit people to fight in Ukraine. Lot going on there. I don't imagine that a lot of this trial is going to be public, but we will see. It is odd that a presidential assassin, would-be presidential assassin, gets their day in court in the way that he will. And based on his public behaviors in the past, it seems like he's got a lot to say. Whether or not his lawyers will allow him to say it is another matter entirely. And that is your update. Head on over to TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Support this show. Get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. And now, to our friend Evan Scrimshaw. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome back to the program one of our friends, Evan Scrimshaw. I want to talk to him about what's going on in New York City, which is by far the most interesting electoral contest that we are going to have in the year of our Lord 2025. Well, let me start with that. In American politics, Evan, would you say that this or Prop 50 is more interesting?
New York is more interesting, at least until we get a sense of whether or not Prop 50 is going to be competitive. Because with how let's just say biased the proposition wording is in California, I'm unconvinced it's going to be particularly competitive, because your voters are essentially being asked, Texas, ain't they terrible? Shouldn't we save the country? And I just simply don't think Democrat, you're going to get 30% of Kamala voters or whatever leaking out on that. So New York is far more interesting.
I would agree. I still do think, I don't know. I mean, I think that I'm with you on the wait and see approach with 50, just because there's probably going to be like $300 million worth of ads dropped on it from various sides. And that one is a little bit more vibe dependent, right? Like there is the lane to kill it is the independent redistricting council, which is very popular both with Democrats, independents, and Republicans. And so if that can cement, it has a chance, but we have no idea whether or not that's possible.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think but like that is a wait and see, because again, a lot of people who you'd think, could potentially be opposed to it, like Rick Caruso is putting some money in. I think that's mostly to cement either a gubernatorial or another mayoral bid. But like, I don't think Rick Caruso is dropping a bunch of money in if he thinks this is a losing bid.
Yeah.
And so I'm sort of like tentatively like it should pass. I think the combo of the people of the financing it's going to have, the fact that they seem to think that Steve Hilton is going to be some grand wizard to defeat this, when Steve Hilton like has never done anything well in his career and gets a lot of credit for working for David Cameron when David Cameron was not that successful. And the fact that people like Rick Caruso are sort of trying to get on the bandwagon so that they can inevitably say, hey, look at me, I did this thing, I was so helpful to the fight for democracy, Yeah, New York's gonna be fun, mostly because these people are all insane.
They are crazy, and so let's break it down. And you correct me if anything I say here is untrue to your ears. Number one, we have the unquestioned leader in the race right now. That is Zohran Mamdani, the man who won the Democratic primary. Usually the person who wins the Democratic primary will win the general. And he has run what I would suggest is not only an exemplary campaign for a first-time candidate at this level, but also a pretty exemplary blueprint for progressives to run throughout the country. You then have, let's just go piece by piece. Anything to add with Zohran, or correct?
I think, no, I completely agree. He's run a very good campaign, and he's run a campaign that I think a lot of progressives should learn from, in the sense that he has been willing to moderate on issues. He's been willing to admit where he was wrong, and he has been willing to engage with media and with personalities that have not always been traditionally friendly to the left. He went on Tim Miller's Bulwark podcast. He did Derek Thompson, for a sort of, socialist lefty to do the Abundance Guys podcast, and then to tell the Times that I was wrong about the city of yes. And, I do understand that sometimes we need to deregulate things, is a pretty big break from traditional socialist doctrinaire. And that's the thing that no one's going to remember, that the left aren't going to pick up. But I think that's actually far more crucial than, the fact he's good on camera. He's obviously very good on camera.
I think that it is its own story in and of itself, that you could say, hey, Democratic candidate, you should go on podcasts that exclusively support Democrats, like the Derek Thompson podcast. Well, Derek Thompson's a little bit more, he doesn't exclusively do politics, but certainly Tim Miller is. That is his role in life, is to be the Republican. I mean, that's what the Bulwark is a Republican outfit that at this point promotes Democrats, but probably not. They're going to give him harder questions than Zohran would find at the bar with a bunch of DSA members. So you have Zohran, and let me actually just add one more thing about what he's doing that I really, really like. In his messaging, he doesn't talk about his big government things usually as projects. He's elevated people. It's about this person will do better because of this thing, which whenever you get into cult of personality campaigns, you can kind of go one of two ways. Trump obviously has kept a lot of the attention on himself, but then again, he has been a singular force in media for many, many decades. Obama similarly, but Zohran, because he's newer to just the public consciousness, has been very, very good at elevating people around him. You almost always see in his ads him interacting with somebody else, which is, I think, very good for him. The way I again cannot be, more complimentary about how this campaign is being run. But that's pretty much where the competence ends. And let's get into the imperfect sides of this. We begin with his closest challenger, and that is the former governor of New York State. I believe his defenestration was the first time that you were on this show, and that is Andrew Cuomo. A lot of talk about him getting his act together and waking up after one of the most humiliating political defeats that you could imagine in the Democratic primary. Have you seen more life out of Andrew Cuomo as he has run in this general election as an independent than you did during the Democratic primary?
In the sense that he is like doing more things and trying to make some more headlines, yes. In the sense that any of what he is doing will help achieve an outcome, no. He has, I don't know why he thinks this is a winning proposal, but he at least tried that whole thing about, you live in a rent stabilized apartment, some homeless single mother would be able to have it if not for you. Well, that's not even how that works. But like, he's at least trying stuff. He's at least getting pollsters to do somewhat ridiculous things that pretending he's winning if you have every other candidate drop out and you give a pro Cuomo and an anti Zoran, bio before quote unquote informed choice. He's at least trying to make it seem like he's doing things. Presumably there will be debates, and I think those will be his opportunities to really nail Zoran, or at least what he thinks will nail Zoran.
Yeah.
But the problem with Cuomo, and I think a lot of the theories about Cuomo, is that he still believes that the primary loss was some sort of act of God, right? It was
it was just some bizarre clerical error that just happens every once in a while. Somebody stapled the papers wrong and he lost.
Right, exactly. And so there's no sort of coherent reckoning with what that means. There's no coherent reckoning with the fact that his black support was not nearly as strong as he would need it to be. There's no sort of reckoning with the fact that plenty of conservatives, I think it was the New York Times poll that actually had Zoran in second place among self-identified conservatives. It's I don't know that they love Zoran. I think it's more so that respectfully, a lot of conservatives and a lot of Republicans hate Andrew Cuomo. He was, he was a figure of Democratic hatred for, 12 years or whatever, 11 years as governor before he resigned. I think I don't think he's reckoned with the fact that this, grand scheme of get everybody to drop out and then be the only one ignores the fact that quite a lot of people that he would need to theoretically vote for him also very much dislike him.
Yeah.
Because he's been a polarizing figure. And at the end of the day, I don't know, man, call Donald Trump and pray that he bails you out of your problems is not a solution. And that seems to be the Cuomo plan at this point.
Which, let's get into that, the Cuomo plan. So you laid out step one, have everybody else that would siphon off potential Cuomo votes drop out. If you were going to make that list, it's 2 men long, and we'll start with the current mayor of New York City, and that is Eric Adams. Rumors abound. If you were to listen to the morning meeting with Mark Halperin, Sean Spicer, and Dan Turrentine, it has been a clearinghouse of every little rumor that's running around Manhattan currently about where Eric Adams would go. At some point, he was going to be the ambassador to Saudi Arabia, which feels like the kind of place that somebody who is transactional as Eric Adams would demand to leave his post as mayor and therefore leave this race. And then at the end of the week, as we mentioned earlier in this episode with Kirk Bado, it is the Jordan Belfort, I'm not leaving speech from Eric Adams. Still, that seems to be step one of two and probably the lion's share of what Cuomo wants, which is black voters and voters that hate Zoran to vote one way as opposed to two. What do you make of the Eric Adams auction to see whether or not he is going to leave this race?
I think if it were a president whose word was more reliable, it would be easier to get him out of the race. Ambassadors do serve at the pleasure of the president.
Yeah.
one, I'm not entirely sure you could get Eric Adams through Senate confirmation because I don't think any Democrats are going to pony up some votes for him. And are 51 Republicans really going to vote for Eric Adams? But two, like, I don't know, man. I wouldn't trust that Trump isn't just going to fire me after 3 weeks. Like, when it's obviously a transactional thing to get rid of Zoran. I think there probably is a price that Eric Adams can pay. I tend to think very lowly of Eric Adams. The fact that Turkey has allegedly, got him for the price that they've gotten him for over the years is pretty interesting. But I mean,
couple first class upgrades.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Not very much. At least Bob Menendez was getting, gold bars from Egypt.
Gold bars from Egypt, yeah.
But I mean, I think lowly enough of Eric Adams that, if some hedge fund came knocking with some fake job, to get rid of him, I think he could be out of this race pretty easily. But like, getting him out is, only halfway to the problem, and I don't think it solves Cuomo's problems really that much at all. Because you would also need the fourth person to get out of the race. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he's going anywhere.
Which brings us to that stubborn Barnacle, the former guardian angel. I guess current guardian angel. He still wears the outfit like he's going to be patrolling the subways tonight. The man who's covered in cats, Curtis Sliwa. For whatever reason, do I have any idea why the Republican Party of New York City can't just find some crypto psycho that, is going to put in a bunch of his own Ethereum to run a campaign? No idea. I have no idea why they can't find anybody that is at least center right, that is new. It feels like they would have a bit of a lane there. I don't know if it's going to win, but I think it would do a little bit better than retreading Sliwa for the God knows how many a time. And yet now he very much seems like he doesn't want to go anywhere. Now he's not polling the highest. He's polling at like 2 or 3% because most of, even self-described Republican voters are pooling behind either Adams or Cuomo because they are terrified at the idea of what Zoran would do to the city. But still, you need everything that you can get if Cuomo is going to climb that ladder. It doesn't sound like you're optimistic that Sliwa would exit stage right.
I mean, he has said like very clearly, I'm not going anywhere. I don't think there's a job that he could be offered that would get him out. And I think like not even that secretly, he would prefer a Zoran mayorship to an Andrew Cuomo one. He seems to hate Cuomo with a fire that he just doesn't have for Zoran. When the like Columbia admissions, Zoran claimed he was African-American, thing happened. He went on Fox News and was like, it's kind of a mixed bag. Like, seems it's like a complicated question for him. He is African,
He came from Uganda. He's in America. Like,
and so he just doesn't seem to have much personal animus towards Zoran. He has quite a lot of personal animus against Andrew Cuomo because, again, most New York City Republicans have had personal animus against Andrew Cuomo for quite a long time. And I think this is also just like what he does at this point. I don't, this does sort of feel like an old college football coach who refuses to exit stage left because, frankly, what else am I going to do with my life if I'm not running for mayor? And, it's not going to work in terms of he's not going to win. I also think there's probably a decent incentive to stay on the ballot because I'm not positive that the New York City Republicans would be super thrilled about not having a mayoral candidate. Probably not the best thing for city council races, to not have a candidate on the ballot and to just be like, no, you can just vote for a Democrat. That's totally fine.
Well, at this point, look, if they're running Sliwa again for the 50th time, then this is a cry for help anyway, right?
I agree. I mean, I agree with you on that, but it's just the problem with this race from a Cuomo standpoint is, well, one, you had ranked choice voting for the primary. You could and should just have it for the general. The fact that they don't is completely insane. But two, and this is where I'm going to sort of die on this hill, is you've got too many people who are too personally invested in themselves and not nearly enough invested in whatever they believe to be the best for the city.
Yeah.
And that's the fundamental problem, is that like Eric Adams, Andrew Cuomo, but neither of them care about what's best for New York City. Both of them are crass egomaniacs who think that, they deserve the house and the job title. Cuomo just thinks that Cuomo's only running.
I mean, like they are not the first crass egomaniacs to inhabit Gracie Mansion in New York City. I mean, crass egomaniac is something that is not disqualifying for that job. That being said, I think when you're up against a story, when you're up against a narrative like Zohran, and you don't have a oppositional narrative to either distract, detract, or be independent of it, then you have a problem. And this kind of gets into the issue that any anti-Zohran movement has faced from back when Mamdani wasn't even somebody that a lot of people were taking seriously, which is the city by and large seems to have rebounded from COVID and has gotten better. And yet the mayor who oversaw it is loathed because of conflicts that he had with the Biden White House and because he cozied up with Trump. And then, he had the legal stuff, and you can salt the taste on how much the Biden Department of Justice was punishing him for being insubordinate. But still, that's your issue, is that a bunch of people hate Eric Adams in a dynamic that they otherwise would not if he were not uniquely a bizarre human. And then of all the people that could ride in on a white horse to save the day, you have, he's not perverted, he's just Italian. I am doing this as an absolute favor to you slobs in New York City who I hate, Andrew Cuomo. And that's just not appealing. It's not appealing then. It wasn't appealing in the Democratic primary. It's not really appealing now. The question is whether or not it's mathematically possible, if there's enough anti-Mamdani sentiment amongst whatever Republicans or conservatives that exist that would not have voted in the Democratic primary. So let me go ahead and bring you to a fanciful scenario. Eric Adams, turns out he gets enough gold bars delivered to him. He's on an Emirates flight from New York City to Abu Dhabi. He's going to do whatever the hell he does for the rest of his life, but he's out of the race. How close do you think that brings Cuomo to Mamdani? Just Adams out of the race.
15 points down,
so you still think it's that far off.
Yeah.
Adams does not bring him within 10. It is still, a pretty tough road to hoe.
I don't think he's getting within 10, even if this is a straight shot.
Really? So let's also drop Sliwa. You still think that it's anywhere between 10 and 15 points?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Zenith polling, the Adam Carlson outfit had, I think, like 52-40 if everybody dropped out. That seems reasonable to me. Like most of the polling that shows somewhat closer if people drop out are conducted by people who, let's be very frank about how good their primary polling was, were absolutely terrible in the primary. Yes. I think you're seeing people underestimate the Zohran coalition and the turnout increases, especially in extremely hard to poll communities, aka a lot of South Asian communities where English is not necessarily the first language and are extremely hard to poll in general. And usually it doesn't matter because New York is like a very Democratic city, but in a mayoral race, it can matter a lot. I just don't think, like, Zohran won a Democratic primary by 12. And I think a lot of Democrats still believe in the, like, vote blue no matter who is a thing that plenty of Democratic voters believe, even if apparently Democratic leaders in New York don't seem to believe it as much. But, he's now the Democratic nominee.
Vote blue no matter who we choose is the way that they like to phrase that.
Right, exactly. But I do think, there are a lot of Democratic voters who would take the very pragmatic view of, okay, I voted for Cuomo in the primary. Yeah. Zohran's now our nominee. I vote for the Democratic nominee. And But yeah, the real reason that Zoran's going to win by, 15, 20, if we don't get the dropouts is very, very simple. Like, they are running Andrew Cuomo. They couldn't have found a single
it's just that
competent.
Simple.
They couldn't find a single competent, scandal-free center-left Democrat who could beat Zoran. They couldn't find anybody.
Yeah,
that's it. That's the best you got. Couldn't even get a random Wall Street guy. Good on abortion, good on gay marriage. Just wants the subway to be clean.
Yeah.
That guy would be that guy would get 70% right now. And nobody could find that. Republicans can't find that. Democrat, the sort of Democratic establishment can't find it. Yeah. And then they wonder why they're losing to Zoran. It's your own damn fault.
It feels like a lot of these institutions, especially in very provincial areas, of which New York City is one of them, where it is kind of like your identity to run these parties or systems or be a power broker, an influencer in those areas, that it kind of feels like how when boxing got really bad, when like all the different, there was, 50 belts and you couldn't build stars because nobody wanted to fight each other. It just feels fractured and balkanized in a way where it's like, okay, well, then you're only going to get Andrew Cuomo. That's what you can agree on, is that, well, why don't we just run a Cuomo? And it's like, oh, you mean the one on TV? That's interesting. No. The one that was run out of office. Oh, okay, I guess. And then that's it. I mean, like, they didn't think that this was going to be, I kind of feel like we're at a point now where this election is going to be in what, 2 months? And they kind of feel like they're just waking up now from the primary. Like they're just like turning on the television and they're like, wait, what do you mean Cuomo's not the nominee? That's crazy. This is nuts. We need to do something. It's I don't know. I have no idea how you get to this point if you are somebody that doesn't want Zoran Mamdani to win. It seems crazy.
Yeah. The answer is that they just, they phoned it in, and Cuomo has hired a bunch of people who have not been good at their jobs in a very long time and who are just there to suck whatever money is out of this very expensive Cuomo campaign.
Yeah.
Without actually doing any of the work. Like, that's what happens, because this was supposed to be a vanity exercise, right? Cuomo is mayor for 4 years. He gets to attend a lot of things. This is his last act, in politics, and it's not resigning. It's not his defenestration. He gets a thing. All of his advisors get a nice campaign paycheck, and then they get a very nice, sinecure for 4 years.
Yeah.
They all get to say that, they were chief of staff or political whatever to the mayor. That helps them down the line, and just everybody forgot about the fact that winning is not a birthright of the Cuomo name. This feels kind of like the Kennedy kid who ran for Senate against Ed Markey in 2020.
Ed Markey, yeah, and
it's just like your whole campaign is just that your last name is Kennedy in Massachusetts, and that was enough to get 44% or whatever. And I think being a Cuomo in New York is enough to get you, 44 in the Democratic primary in New York, hilariously.
That was Joe Kennedy, because he's named after one of the most ruthless men in the history of American politics, a guy who lobotomized his own daughter because she mouthed off too much and she was a political liability. For you to sleepwalk through a double-digit loss against Ed Markey, ancient Ed Markey, is just just a disrespect, not only to your last name, but really your first. You can't be called Joe Kennedy and not be an absolute killer.
Well, and the funny thing is that we thought that the decision to primary Ed Markey was actually evidence of that ruthlessness, because you have a much better chance against ancient Ed Markey in a direct head-to-head than you do in what will be an extremely crowded primary whenever either Elizabeth Warren or Ed Markey retire. There's like 17 people in Massachusetts who are all just like essentially fighting for 4 jobs.
Yeah.
And so, we thought that was going to be sort of evidence of his ruthlessness, and then he just completely funny. Yeah. Speaking of New York City politics and the Kennedys, have you seen who's considering running for Jerry Nadler's seat?
Oh, I have. The dawning of the age of Chelsea Clinton, Representative Clinton.
Oh no, she said she's not running.
Oh really? No, then I don't know. That was the rumor I saw.
Jack Schlossberg, Carolyn Kennedy's kid.
Oh.
He's forming an exploratory committee.
That's funny. I liked it better when it was Chelsea Clinton.
I mean, it makes more sense for Chelsea Clinton to run. I'm surprised she took her name out that quickly. But like Jack Schlossberg for Congress.
Well, who actually wants to be a representative? Like that's the problem. You're gonna go to DC and sit in some tiny representative office and go elbowing around with a bunch of people hooting and hollering and screaming, and Nancy Mace is gonna pull the fire alarm. Or no, that was Jamal Bowman. Sorry. That just seems like an undignified place for somebody who's already rich and famous to be.
Yeah, but would Congress not be so much more fun if we had Jack Schlossberg incoherently
in New York?
To the DC,
well, that's like
the DC
where
press corps, and then heading back to New York, and then rambling to like the Times.
It would be good. It would
Think about how much fun the Post and the Daily News would have with him. Oh my God.
The question then becomes, it's actually just what is the role of that representative in a post Nadler world? Like that is a pretty plum seat, but also, you're not going to want for money for sure. You're going to be able to, but then again, he wouldn't want for money currently. So.
No, that primary is going to be insane because there's going to be like 14 people who run, and the winner is probably going to win with like 22% of the vote or some ungodly limited split because New York doesn't have ranked choice voting or runoffs.
It is just going to be like it's a mad world for fail sons and daughters. Like they just need something to do.
Oh, it's gonna be incredible, and the left are gonna want to make sure that they get somebody. But and then you've also got the whole what is Hakeem Jeffries doing by not back to more serious politics? What is Hakeem Jeffries doing by not endorsing? Because I think he is creating bigger problems for himself with this, like, we're taking meetings and I get the meetings are going well, but I'm not going to endorse. Like, I think he's really setting up a real problem because I think people are going to want to start primarying his New York City members at this point because a bunch of them rep, Zoran 1 seats. Brad Lander for New York 10 is something that's, every Twitter liberal has been dreaming about it.
All aboard, yeah.
But you've got Dan Goldman, Richie Torres, like you've got people in theoretically vulnerable seats, and you've got the House leader just like dramatically opining about how he's not yet on board. Like either endorse him or shut up.
Yeah,
but like just endorse him. You're from New York. Do it. He's the nominee. It's Andrew Cuomo. Even Tim Miller can understand that it's Andrew Cuomo or the Democratic nominee. It's not a hard choice.
Hakeem Jeffries is not that dude. I don't know how long he is going to be in the position that he's in. And part of it is because you can be a lot of things when you are theoretically the leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives. Indecisive is not one of them. And so I can see from his perspective, he's like, gosh, darn it. Not only are we getting ripped on this redistricting fight, so we're now going to have a bigger hill to climb, even if 50 passes, but a lot of these seats that we were looking to retake now are going to be harder because everyone's going to run on the Mamdani party, and that this is really socialism. Look, they're even doing a socialism in New York City. And do you believe it? Here's Hakeem Jeffries smiling and holding the hand aloft of Zohran Mamdani, the new socialist czar of the Democratic Party and America, if you don't vote red this November. I can understand where he's coming from. But to your point, look, just because it's a hard choice doesn't mean you don't have to make one. And either you put your foot in the sand and you say, look, I am a Democrat through and through. However, I am going to decline to endorse because blah, 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 blah. And then you leak out, I have grave reservations about this, that, and the other. And I believe that Democrats need to run countrywide, and socialism is not popular outside of this very liberal area of the country. Or you say, screw it. Like, this is it. This is what the people want. We're all in, and we are going to defend Democratic priorities. And at the end of the day, you want to know, we're not talking about New York when it comes to the midterms. We're talking about Donald Trump, and we're talking about deportations, and we're talking about tariffs, and we're talking about SNAP benefits and Medicaid. Like, the fact that we're even talking about this is an indictment on Jeffries and the fact that he is failing in this moment. He's just not that dude. He's not built for it.
Yeah, I think that's like the right answer, because I think if you are scared of like, well, you know, they're gonna say this one, they're gonna say this about your candidates, whether or not you show up or not. You are not Nancy Pelosi. You are not a figure of Republican hatred, and you know, they can't just sort of pigeonhole you. Like, they're not going to put you in the ad. Somebody knows who you are.
Yeah.
Number one, but number two, if you genuinely are opposed to Zohran, right? If you genuinely believe that he is bad, then say so. Then say, I'm not endorsing. I'm not going to endorse a candidate I have grave reservations about. I, wish whoever wins this election the best of luck. I think all the mayoral candidates are terrible, and I'm not voting. I'll vote Democratic for council. I'm not voting for mayor. Whatever. Then say that. Like, if that's what you believe, say that. This wishy-washy, like, nonsense,
because it's
is not good
in
enough.
The air stuff, like,
that would have been fine the first week after the primary. After that, it becomes unacceptable.
Yeah. No, but he's waiting for more data. He wants to know. It's like, all right, well, where are we now? Is the Epstein stuff going to carry? Is, Trump going to move National Guard into Chicago? I mean, this is the problem, is that right now there doesn't seem to be a Democratic North Star. So everything is swayable. Everything is subject to the next thing that happens out of the White House. And you're not great counterpunchers, and counterpunching does not cement a narrative. In fact, the reason why Zohran is probably going to play a larger role in the midterms, should he win, which I expect he will, is because he's the only dude who seems to actually have a plan that is independent of Donald Trump. Like, Zohran has talked about Trump. He has made Trump a boogeyman, but mostly it's like him doing it as a look to the side camera that, he can make the rolling the dice motion amongst his larger points. It's not the main course and both sides, Trump, Trump, Trump.
Yeah, because he has actually thought about the powers of the office that he is attempting to get, and how the powers of the office. He's telling a story.
And look, like, you can pick on him for saying that he misunderstands the powers of the office. You can pick on him for saying that his ideas are stupid. But you have to do it eventually. And the Republicans are itching to do it. Whether or not that's smart for them, we'll find out. But they are extraordinarily excited to run against Zohran Mamdani, to the point where I've actually been kind of surprised that the Trump White House has seemingly been willing to play ball with some of this lane clearing stuff, which I can only assess to Trump's got rich friends in New York that are like, help us, please. You're the only one.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I also think I mean, I think if you're Republicans, you either get to run against Democrats just elected a socialist as mayor, be scared, or Democrats just elected a, sex offender, or somebody who had to resign for sexual impropriety. Yeah. I don't exactly think from a Republican scare campaign approach, I think both are pretty bad. Like, I think both of them are good for Republican ambitions. I don't think they really are unhappy either way.
Well, I mean, I think that they are ancillary no matter what. The midterms will be determined on the economy like it always is. So it's like, look, if we are deep into stagflation by the time that people roll to the polls, then you're going to see a really, really, really good night for Democrats. If we are at a point where things are sunnier and the rate cuts work, and now we see a hiring boom and there's a lot of people going to work by the time that we're sitting here a year from now, then it's going to be harder sledding for the Democrats, because it'll be, Trump was right. He saw us through the storm and corrected course. But, the Mamdani stuff, I think, matters locally. It matters for some of those swing seats in that area, in the same way that SALT matters in those races. But yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be ancillary. I do know that Republican messaging people are horny as hell to do it. They are already testing all of the Soviet era sounds that they can that they could put behind, a big red tinge superimposed Mamdani controlling America stuff.
Yeah. But I will just say that being excited about running such a campaign and such campaigns working is not always the same. Conservatives in the UK thought Jeremy Corbyn was, the dream candidate to run against in 2017. And somehow he has the best Labour result since Tony Blair. Now, he also has the worst since Michael Foot. So, they were right eventually.
High variance candidate. Yeah. All right, Scrim, any other political stuff that's on your mind?
Not really. I mean, it was kind of a boring August.
It was.
I mean, I guess, Ezra Klein and the Democratic shutdown thing led to some of the worst discourse I've seen yesterday on Twitter, which is just Democrats don't have good options. Okay. They don't. And that's the whole thing about losing, right? Yeah. Is when you lose, you have worse options than when you win. Just the number of people who can't read a very clear sentence, which is, I'm not guaranteeing it'll work, but they have to do it anyways. Yeah. Which is essentially, his piece. The number of people who can't understand a very basic concept to me is staggering. Democrats have to shut down the government. It's the only move that has a chance of working. And I think people who are waiting for Democrats to be their salvation, I would just suggest don't really know what they're doing, because they tried this and they lost. And I don't really understand why people are still waiting for them to save the day.
They have no choice now. You can't essentially shut down all the nominations, and you can't talk with the rhetoric that you're talking and then not shut down the government. Now, I think that there is probably a way that they could have reshaped where they were going before. But again, to go back to Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, they're not those dudes. There is no North Star right now. And so I do think that this will fail. I do think that a shutdown will ultimately benefit Donald Trump. I do think that Republicans are thrilled that Democrats want to do this, but you have to tell a coherent story for your voting base. And right now, the people that are paying attention the most would show up with pitchforks and torches if they didn't. And so either you're responsive to them or you're not. And if you're not, then you got to actually show some leadership. And either Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries, I don't think that they have that in their DNA.
No, and that's the massive problem is I don't know what Democrats are so mad. And I vaguely defended the March decision not to shut it down.
Yeah.
Because I at least understood why Schumer made the tactical choice he made. But the level of anger, the number of people who were like, can we primary Brian Schatz tomorrow?
Yeah.
For one, in their view, bad vote.
Yeah.
Like, and the problem is that you can't walk everybody, you could take that choice in March because, this isn't a good bill. After the one big beautiful bill, after the rescission package, you have to do this. It's probably not. It's probably not going to work. There ain't a better solution. Funding this. If they don't shut down this government, if they do this, I'm not positive either of them are still in their jobs.
No. They're both gone. That's why it's happening.
Like Democratic voters are not going to accept. Meek acquiescence again
for not putting something else there that they can fight for, right? Like that's what leadership is. Leadership is like, hey, we are trying to move the ball. Like we have one thing we think we can do. We have one splinter that we can put in their eye. And at the very least, we can push forward. We can figure out an issue that's not Jeffrey Epstein that maybe we can try to circle a discharge petition for that can get some people on and that the White House now has to crush. And then we can say, hey, look, we made Trump do a thing. We're trying to push stuff forward. They can't find an issue and they can't do anything about it. And so it's like, in a weird way, the best thing I think for the party would be for them to not shut down, not only because I think it's probably the best thing coherently for their larger party narrative, but also because it would clear out two clowns at leadership.
Yeah, that's definitely possible that like actually secretly burn it all down would be the best thing. I just don't.
Not to say that anybody, I don't think minority leader Chris Murphy would be a revelation of leadership, but
that's the thing is that like Schumer almost kind of needs to stick around for a little bit longer because like when you're minority leader,
bench look like.
Well, I mean the whip is retiring 80-something.
Yeah,
Dick Durbin. So like there's not an obvious successor. I think Schatz is supposed to be the successor. But he's going to need a couple of terms as whip to get sort of close. It's just like but the thing is like Jeffries isn't supposed to be bad at this. He's only been there for 4 years.
Yeah.
Not even 3. Like it's a real wild predicament that Democrats have found themselves in. It's honestly, just bring Nancy back. If she's basically running the party anyways, just bring her back.
Just it's fine. It's fine, Nancy. Just grab a pint of Jenny's and just take the office back. It's all right. It's all right.
I mean, at this point, Democrats don't seem to have a better option than that. It's just like wild the number of people.
It would be like when they brought back Joe Gibbs to the then Redskins. It was just like, it's like, you want to know what? Fine. We'll just bring it. Like, yeah, he's old as hell, but maybe it'll be better.
I mean, it's quite fun. It's just fun the number of people who can't understand that sometimes there aren't good options. Because people always just go, well, this is going to work. And okay, but that's not going to work. And it's just like, yes, sometimes there are no good options. Well, they should be able to do something.
And also just think about it again. It's like the problem isn't today. The problem is everything that's happened since March when you last had this problem. And you're like, okay, well, let's figure out something that can busy the minds of our most angry coalition members. Let's figure out a thing that we can do that isn't just shoveling empty outrage of every single Donald Trump Truth Social post. And they can't find a spark that can capture that imagination. They cannot find anything on the left side of the aisle that can challenge what is happening except for an own goal from the right on this Epstein stuff. That's it. So credit to them. They found a thing lying on the floor and they stabbed their opponent with it. But they can't create anything of their own. And that is the sign of a broken party and a broken coalition, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is the one place where I think America being a presidential democracy is a bad thing, because at least because the problem is the out party doesn't have a quote unquote leader for like 3 years. Whereas, by now you would, Democrats in a parliamentary democracy, Democrats would probably have already elected a new leader. They'd have had the bloodletting fight. Yeah. And, they would have a new leader with something resembling an internal mandate to, fight a new
just
message
say
in a
things
new battle
that you can figure out message wise resonate or don't.
Right.
Like,
you could have
entirely dependent on your opponent.
Yeah, and you could have a singular person actually leading this fight as opposed to, 19 people, quote unquote, speaking for Democrats,
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Evan Scrimshaw, where can people find you?
Politics at scrimshawunscripted.substack.com. I'm hoping for week 3 of the football season, I will have a new website available with some sports writing content, NFL picks every Friday, some NHL, NBA previews, and interesting articles. Then Twitter at eScrimshaw. Listen to the Scrimshaw Show on YouTube and hopefully on Spotify and Apple. Hopefully by, again, week 3. Buy my book, Salvation in the Storm. Big win for your Steelers this weekend, eh?
Just like everyone drew it up, man. Justin Fields and Aaron Rodgers doing the Temu version of Lamar and Josh. Just the second highest scoring game of the week. 4 touchdowns for old man Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, I was not thrilled that what I thought could have a chance to be the best defense in the league looked like an expressway for Breece Hall. But other than that, I was thrilled to see something that I didn't know existed, which was competent third down and long passing over the middle and, dare I say, creative play calling from Arthur Smith and his bizarre tight end fetish.
I mean, you at least have the personnel for Arthur Smith's bizarre tight end fetish. No, I mean, that was one of the games of the day. Not a good day of football yesterday at all. Sunday night has really rescued the vibes because I was listening to Guess the Lines because I am a massive Bill Simmons nerd. And it's like, I was imagining how bad of a mood they would have been in if Sunday Night Football,
if that game sucked.
Even if the Ravens had just won by 15, like if that fourth quarter kind of fizzles, they would have just been like, "Oh, this is a terrible day of football."
Yeah. The week 1 poop-apocalypse reaction or whatever.
Oh God, there would have been.
I would have loved because it would have forced more time for them to talk about Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, where they just don't want to at all. And
but the thing is that Simmons thinks that Rodgers is washed, and so he will not adjust that prior for 5 weeks, no matter what Rodgers does.
No matter what. Although they were both complimentary, which is saying something, considering Rodgers has alleged that their friend Jimmy Kimmel was on the Epstein Island. So any kind of compliment is something that I am here for.
Yeah, no. It was very exciting. I
think Fields looked good. Like, honestly, I think that my biggest takeaway from that game, and this is the end of the politics stuff. So anybody who's mad at me for talking about football, you can just skip ahead. The episode's over. I think that the most likely thing that comes out of that game is that both teams their offenses are pretty good. Like I really liked what the Jets did. And I think, if Justin Fields can play like that, he's good. There's a reason why the Steelers wanted him back, as they thought that he could take another leap in terms of his passing if they built an offense for him. And the Jets did. I think the Steelers, obviously the Breece Hall stuff is disgusting, but they kept Justin Fields' legs under control. And I think that they thought that was probably their biggest fear. But I don't know. I think that I don't know if the Jets are going to challenge the Bills or anything, but I think it's very clearly in the AFC East, there are 2 good teams and then there are 2 really bad teams.
Yeah. Patriots were not inspiring in the slightest. Fields is weird because I've always thought that there was something more there, and it's just like, has he played for a good coordinator yet? And maybe that's all it's taken, Talk me off of Green Bay as winning the Super Bowl, because that is.
I can't. I even took the Lions value. Where I'm like, Lions, like, should they really be getting points week 1? Like, I don't know if I believe in it because I kind of believe in Green Bay, but I like the idea. Like, I'd feel stupid. I wouldn't feel stupid if Green Bay, who I think is good at home, but I would feel stupid if I didn't take the Lions getting points. And boy, it was not close early, wasn't close in the middle, and it sure as hell wasn't close late. Green Bay looks awesome, and I cannot wait to see them against top tier talent as teams gel. And in fact, the next time they play the Lions, I'm going to be really, really excited for it.
Yeah, no, I think they get the Lions again on. I think they're Thanksgiving this year. I mean, they've got the Commanders on Thursday night, so I'm very excited for this. But like, this is the first time since probably like 2011. Because I never really thought that those like mid-decade Rodgers teams were ever winning anything because the defense wasn't good enough and McCarthy was an idiot. But like, this is the first time since like 2011, 2012, I'm legitimately walking into a season and being like, let's do this. Let's
the horses.
Go. We've got the horses. And like Parsons, was great. But more importantly, getting a double team is opening up the rest of that defensive line, and Goff had negative time to throw every game. Yeah. It's so good. Oh, I'm so happy.
They need to just take the keys away from Jerry. Like, I know that maybe you just put him, AI can do this. You just got to put him in another simulated place like they did with some like Despot, where you just bring him to another island and say like, hey, look, like you're still running everything, and just make him think that he runs everything. But that trading Micah Parsons, and then I was watching the pregame, and they had who's the Fox guy? Jay Glazer. And Jay Glazer's doing his like rumors report and everything. And he's like, well, the Cowboys decided that they were trading Micah Parsons a week before, and their ideal was to trade him outside of the conference, but they couldn't get the deal. And it's like, I understand this is all source management and you got to say things sometimes so people tell you other things, but bullshit. That is like to give up 2 first rounders and a player to get Micah Parsons. Like, the Steelers have 2 good edge rushers and they're looking for a quarterback next year. We're not quite at that place, but I mean, a first and 3 seconds and Highsmith for Micah Parsons. Yeah. I would think about it. There's no way that nobody else wanted to give them 2 first rounders and a okay player. That's crazy.
I mean, it was like basically immediately when it happened, people were like, teams were like leaking, like, what? This was available? Yeah. We didn't know about
for that price.
We didn't know. We would have paid that. So the idea that no AFC team was interested, no AFC team could have beat that package. No, it's obvious. It's obviously bullshit. It's obviously like, just source management.
That even the top tier teams that don't care about their picks, because that was the other thing that's crazy about this is that you gave them to Green Bay where the picks are going to be bad. You're telling me that the Ravens wouldn't want it? You're telling me that the Bills wouldn't want it? You're telling me that the Chiefs wouldn't want it? Like, come on. What are you talking about?
You think, or even the Raiders, the Patriots?
Yeah.
Of course they would have. No, it's
the
malpractice.
It might be good. Those picks might be good, at least.
Right. That's who you should have been trying to get, is like a sort of like mid-tier team with like, who has ambitions, but also quarterback who might be good, it might suck. Not a team that's going to win 10 games if you don't have Micah Parsons is going to win 12 with them.
I know. Insane. All right. Scrim, always great to have you. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, man.
And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio, edited and produced by Mr. Will Saddleberg. Thank you to Kirk Bado. Thank you to Evan Scrimshaw. If you want to support the show and get bonus clips of this show, then head on over to our social media. Share them willy-nilly. In fact, you want to know what? Let me know what you think about our clips. Do you like our clips? Do you not like our clips? We've had certain traction with some of them, but I want to make them good. I want to make them good for you guys. Go ahead and sample them before you send me your feedback. Justin R. Young on Instagram, Justin R. Young on TikTok, Justin R. Young on X, and then, of course, all of our video, including the full-length episodes on our YouTube, youtube.com/politics. Yeah. You want to know what? Guys, I'm going to be upfront with you. I got to head on over to the airport. So all the other stuff, you can give us money on various different platforms. Please go ahead and get on board with our Substack. That is takepoliticsseriously.com for $30 a week, $12 a month. You can get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. And now we're getting into crunch time on these off year elections, and the midterms are in full swing right after that. So this is a good time to get on board. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. But if you want your name read at the end of the show, there's only one place to do it, and that is our foundational tier, including Sonny Black, L3PO, Peepaw, Scott, Middle-Aged Mike, Tom, Sarah Jeannie, Jeremy, Pro Idiot, Chiller Tomatoes, oh yeah, it's Adam, Neil, AB Puppy, Just Another Pilot, Dr. Whiskey, Michael, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Will, The Borge B, Matthew, Matt, Andrew, Edwin, Sam, Andrew, Phil, Edison, Devon, Paul, A Dog Named Checkers, Gloria, Jerry, Trucker, John, Berkeley, and Zombie Doc. You want your name read? One place to do it, takepoliticsseriously.com. Will we have a show on Friday? I think so, but I don't know. So there's a chance. Everything's happening at the zoo. I assume we're going to, though. As of now, we will. Who's going to be on it? Well, I'll leave that a surprise. Till then. This is your old pal, Justin Robert Young, saying some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, and still more discuss politics. This is the only show that dares discuss three.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show audio.